What does the act of standing after a stroke have to do with great comedy? Timing. Today I'm going to show you a little bit of magic, and it looks a little bit like this. Against the white background, you'll be able to see that as I go to stand up, not just me, knees go forward so that they're further in front of the big toe. Today I've put on one white sock, one black sock. The side that's nearest the camera, wearing the white sock, this is going to represent the most obviously affected leg. Many people won't put their obviously affected leg right underneath them. They often leave it a little bit out in front, and they often put the least obviously affected leg underneath a little bit more to get up. Now, anybody who hasn't had a stroke can still get up pretty easily like that. But after stroke, what happens is the timing of the weight coming forwards over the feet and the amount the weight comes forward over the feet is disrupted. And this is yet another example of the reason why I say that stroke affects both sides of the body. There are a few components to this, not least of which is the flexibility of the hip joints themselves and the pelvis rolling forwards between the hips to allow the weight to come centrally and far enough forward. Another way of saying it is the hips have to open widthways to allow the weight to come through. The pelvis will roll and the lower spine starts to extend or get an arch in it. Most of the people who are having difficulty getting up from stroke aren't getting an arch in their back, they're not rolling their pelvis far enough forwards, so they try and get weight over their feet by throwing the head like so, and end up trying to do their standing whilst looking straight down at the floor. You might do it a little bit, but it's going to seem like an enormous effort. And if that sounds like you, then this will be a big part of the explanation about why you're having such difficulty. It is normal to be able to stand up on one leg from a chair. Most people with a reasonable degree of health would be able to do this. And the chances are very high that if you've had a stroke yourself and you're watching this before the stroke, you could have stood up from a chair on one leg. So why is it still so difficult? And the answer is the timing and the coordination of that action is disrupted in both sides of the brain by the stroke. And the reason I say it's disrupted in the brain as well as in the limbs is because both sides of the brain are talking to each other like crazy all the time when you're trying to do movement. And the other reason is that if the stroke is in the right side of the brain, which is probably the slightly more common, then the traditional view is that it's the left side of the body that is the most affected, or that is the affected. But we must remember, go back to the previous video, both sides of the brain are connected to both sides of the body. So if you've got an injury in one half, it's going to affect both sides of your body. After stroke, for most people, it's simply that the effects on one side of the body are blindingly obvious. The effects on the other side of the body are subtle. It's about timing. It's about grading. If you're familiar with a car, for example. A car has an engine in it, and you press the accelerator and the engine revs. So the engine operates at low intensity, or idling when you're just parked, or it operates at high intensity when you're going at full speed or trying to accelerate hard. And your muscles have a similar element to them as well. They can work softly, gently, or they can work somewhere in the middle, or they can work to their very hardest as well. And that mechanism is also disrupted by stroke. So you're putting in the wrong amount of effort with some of the muscles. And I hope this goes a long way to explaining why standing after stroke is quite so difficult. I think there are some good tips in there to be looking for, and I would encourage anybody to discuss the contents of this video with a physiotherapist or physical therapist who they're working with, and see how to apply it to you. Because again, in the end, this video is not meant to replace physiotherapy time. It's meant to be an add-on to physiotherapy time, to encourage you. This is one you can have at home 7 days a week. I won't say 24 hours a day, but many of your waking hours could be encouraged and prompted by videos, because unlike physios, they don't get tired.